as a content creator, you have to realize that you're not just competing against your direct competition. You're competing against Mr. Beast, LeBron James, Kim Kardashian, Kevin Hart. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they contextualize their message in the same way as everybody else.
This is Elevate with Jack Delosa. Going viral isn't luck, it's engineered. Today's guest and his team have generated over 100 million followers and 60 billion views. In a recent experiment, he generated over 1 million Facebook followers in 30 days flat just to prove it could be done. Brendan Kane is one of the world's leading social media and audience growth experts. He's worked with global icons such as Taylor Swift, Rihanna, as well as Fortune 500 companies such as Yahoo, MTV, Sony Pictures, and Paramount Pictures. Today, Brendan takes decades of experience and translates that to businesses and creators of all shapes and sizes. If you're a business owner, a thought leader, or a creator of any kind, and you're looking to grow a highly engaged social media following, scale your audience to hundreds of thousands or millions of people, and amplify your message around the world, then this deep dive conversation is tailor-made for you. Welcome to Elevate with Jack Delosa. Brendan, thank you for being here.
It's good to see you again.
Now, mate, your whole methodology and how you've built brands and scaled global audiences from icons from Taylor Swift and Rihanna to Fortune 500 companies to small to medium-sized business owners, entrepreneurs, creatives. Your methodology is so counterintuitive. It's so different to the popular methodologies that are often, spoken about more broadly. Your methodology is grounded in research and data. It's replicable. It's continuously successful. Talk to us about your methodology and how it's the antithesis of what we usually hear about as it pertains to success on social media.
Yeah, so there's kind of two methodologies of the people approach to social media on a macro level. There is the traditional marketing that was designed pre-social media, and then there's all kind of the hacks, tricks, things like that have been evolving and changing with social media. The problem with both of those is really if you look at, like I started in social media in 2005. So I remember when MySpace hit its first million users and that was like the big news story. You fast forward today, there's nearly 4 billion people on social media pushing 200 billion messages into the world every day. So the landscape of social media has completely shifted. Going from 1 million content creators to 4 billion is a massive shift. So thus, there's so much competition that you have to fight against to rise above the noise. So the one thing that you really have to take into consideration in being successful with social is the algorithms. And there's so much misinformation and demonization about the algorithms. The biggest myth is it's pay to play. And that's simply false, because if it was pay to play, nobody would go viral. You wouldn't have a Mr. Beast. You wouldn't have a Taylor Swift. You wouldn't have any of these people because the algorithms aren't just favoring people for the sake of favoring people. So what are the algorithms there to do? They're there to do one thing, and that's retention. The longer people spend on the platform, the more ads they can serve, the more profit that they drive for their business. So thus, they're always going to prioritize content and content creators that can stop the scroll, because that's a first signal. If you can't stop people from scrolling or on YouTube click the suggested video, well, then you're never going to gain or hold attention. And the second is, how long are you holding that attention for? So it's very simple, but it's not easy because, again, you're competing against 200 billion messages. So our process that we've developed over the past 7 years is called viral content engineering. So if we look at the traditional way that content is created, whether it's social media or not, is typically 99% of people are following what we call the common sense model. So they have set brand guidelines. Like, this is what my brand is about. This is how I'm going to then make the ideas that I'm going to create. So their ideation is predicated just on their brand guidelines or what they think their brand represents. So then they create bunch of ideas, and then they go into production and they create a bunch of content. Some people do content for a week, some people do content for a quarter. I've seen people do content for an entire year. And then they post it, and then they review the results, and then they go back and start the process all over again. Now, the problem with that is data is not informing the creative decisions. It's the brand. And like if you think about science, when we develop a cure, we develop a new vitamin supplement, things like that. We don't just like come up with an idea, throw a bunch of stuff in a bucket and mix it up and there we go. No, luckily we have like the FDA and these regulating governing bodies that say no, we have to leverage years, if not centuries, of data of trial and error to inform our investments. For some reason, when we go into creativity and social media, we discard billions of data points that are available to us for absolutely free. So the viral content engineering process is deeply rooted in research. So the first step is research. So what does that mean? Most people think, oh, I'm going to look at my competition, and that's going to tell me what I should do. 9 times out of 10, when we're working with the clients, the competition will tell you what not to do because most people are underperforming with social media because they're falling into that traditional model. Now, it is important to understand why others are not having success. You know, we call them performance drivers. We want to look at the low performance drivers. But in order to go viral and go viral consistently, we need to understand why things go viral. So that's where we extend the research out to other content creators, other businesses, other brands that are doing social well, even if it has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about. Because with that research, we can start forming hypotheses. What are the high performance drivers? Meaning, what are the ways that they're contextualizing their content that's driving that virality? It could be their storytelling technique, it could be their pacing, their tone, colors, all of these different things that can drive it. So now that we have our hypotheses of what's driving performance on the highest level and on the lowest level, then we can start creating our ideas. So with everything that we've learned with the hypotheses, then we can start creating ideas that we think that we can take those learnings and apply it to. Now, the other big difference is we do single production iteration, meaning we're producing a single piece of content at a time. And the reason is once we post that piece of content and review the results, we can look at it on a very granular level. Did our hypothesis hold true? Did the performance drivers come through? And if it didn't, was it our execution of the performance driver, or were we looking at the wrong performance driver? And then and if it worked, we can still take those learnings and we go back to the step one again. We do more research and then we go through the process. So it's really about setting this foundational piece. The other big difference is you heard me mention single production iteration. Another big myth is frequency. Now, frequency did play a role at a time when the algorithms were trying to get more people to create content and get more people on these platforms. And when new features are released, like when Instagram Reels came out, there wasn't a lot of inventory for them to push, so they would give favorability to that.
Yeah.
But if you're just taking advantage, again, of a new feature, a new trick, a new hack, then when things get tough, when the competition becomes big, then how are you going to be long-standing? So again, we don't focus on frequency, we focus on quality over quantity because you can have tremendous success. It's not like we were talking about Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast maybe does a big video every 3 to 4 weeks, but he kills it because he pays attention to the nuanced details and really focusing on a single piece of content at a time.
Okay. There's so much here that I want to dive into. Let's continue that Mr. Beast conversation. You and I were talking yesterday at lunch, and we were talking about how quality over quantity is a fundamental axiom to success. Because if you're releasing stuff and people aren't stopping on it, retaining in it, and watching it and digesting it, the algorithm, so to speak, is going to learn that people are looking at this and not hanging around, and that goes against what the algorithm's designed to do, so they're going to give you lower favorability. Whereas if you're posting less often, but high quality things. And the algorithm learns, the platform that you're playing on learns that when you post, people stop. If you're on YouTube, they click on it and they stay, then you're going to look favorable according to the platform, and therefore have a much higher organic reach. One of the things you mentioned is Mr. Beast, for example. I mean, even just looking at him, I mean, you spoke to this a moment ago when you said you will look at not just someone's competitors, but people from different industries, people from different fields, to understand how are they contextualizing their message, how are they telling stories. After we caught up yesterday, I went back to the hotel that I'm at here, and I watched Mr. Beast for the first time, I think ever. I'd heard of him before, but I'd never stopped to really look into him. And there were so many things that he was doing that me as a business creator and entrepreneurial thought leader could adopt and take on, that was fundamentally changing my thinking and how I approach it. One of the things you mentioned yesterday is that he will often spend $1 million on a video in a month or two and get to the end of that process and can it because he views it as not being high quality enough. Can you talk to us a little bit further about the importance of releasing things that cause people to stop and stay?
Yeah, I mean, you hit on it. And again, it's the reason Mr. Beast won't post a video even if he's made $1 million is because of the algorithms. Is that you? It's like it's building trust. So it's like, let's just say you signed a deal with Netflix, and it's your first deal. They're gonna hyper analyze and micromanage that piece of content if they're
Mm,
paying you a lot of money
mm,
to post it.
mm,
And if it's successful, they give you more and more creative freedom to do what you want to do.
mm.
If it bombs, then they're like, yeah, maybe we'll give you some other stuff, or we're going to suppress it down because we're not sure people are really going to dig into it.
That's a great metaphor.
And it's the same with the algorithms.
Right.
Is their feed and retention is their holy grail.
Yes.
It's like, imagine if you woke up and you were on Instagram and you scrolled and it was a crap piece of content, and then
Right.
another one, and then another one, and then another one. You're like, I'm getting bored here. What are you going to do?
Right.
You're going to close the app and do something else.
Right.
And if you do that over and over again, that Instagram or any platform runs the risk of you not resulting back to that. So, what they're going to always do is prioritize content creators that have earned that trust. Now, at this stage, there's no free wins. Like, if a content creator like a Mr. Beast or a Jay Shetty or somebody releases something and it's no good, they're going to, they may give it more reach out the gate, but once they see the metrics tanking, they're going to suppress that reach. And that's why Mr. Beast does it. So,
Mm.
like, let's take the analogy. Let's say you're, and you have an Instagram account or YouTube account
Mm.
with 10,000 subscribers or 1,000, whatever it is.
Mm.
You haven't earned that trust. So what is YouTube going to do? They may seed it to 1,000 people and measure it. And if the metrics hold up, they'll go to 5,000. They'll keep going incrementally. But if they push it to 1,000 people and the metrics don't add up, it's going to shut it down right there. Versus a Mr. Beast or like a Jay Shetty, because they have so much trust, instead of seeding it to 1,000 people, they may seed it to 1,000,000 people. But those 1,000,000 people, if they don't resonate, it's still going to stop it there. So that's where it's just really critically important. The other thing to take into consideration is let's just say that we took Jay Shetty's most viral video and we uploaded it to an account that doesn't have good standing in the algorithms. And the Jay Shetty video on Facebook has 400 million views. You're not going to generate 400 million views if you post it on this.
Mm.
Maybe you generate 1,000,000 or 5,000,000 views, but because you haven't generated that trust, you have to keep winning it over time.
So let's talk about that. Reverse engineering virality. It's something that you've spent, as you said, since 2005, in deep research and you're a practitioner at this, case studies and the results speak for themselves. What are the commonalities? So, somebody's watching this, they've got 1,000 subscribers on YouTube or 1,000 followers on Instagram. What are the core elements of their content that they should be looking at to maximize virality?
Yeah, again, focus less on your content, focus more on others' content. and dissecting and analyzing. Now, the challenge is there's so much nuance into this. Like my creative director built a company or built a team that built a team up to 65 producers that were doing about 3.5 billion views a month. And they could spend upwards of 2 weeks on the first 3 seconds of a video.
Wow.
Like dissecting it. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody's got to do it.
No.
But that's the level of the nuance that you have to pay attention to. So it's very like we have a full list of things down to pacing, tone, lighting, number of edits, first 3 seconds, captions, like all of these variables. And even within those variables, there's nuances. So it's taking us years to understand that. Now, I'm not suggesting people don't start, because if you don't start, then you'll never get there. I mean, this is the sole reason I'm creating a research product where we do the research for people, because even when we train people in the model, either they don't have the time, they don't have the desire, or it takes them too long to get good at it.
Yeah.
But at a high level, just as a content consumer, when you're seeing a video that's doing 10, 20, or maybe even just 1 million views, start seeing what are they doing? Like, how are they delivering your content, and compare it to yours? Like, what are the key differentiators there?
So the challenge with that is that there's everybody's doing it so differently, right? One video that might have 1 million views on YouTube might be, an entrepreneur sitting there looking down the barrel of his iPhone camera, no edits across multiple cameras, strong 3 seconds, strong message, strong credibility, but there's not a lot going on from a camera perspective or an editing perspective that's, noticeable to the untrained eye anyway. And then you've got someone like a Mr. Beast where there's, it's a full-scale production. So, like, are there kind of core commonalities or principles? We've spoken about the first 3 seconds. Like, what should happen in the first 3 seconds in order to retain somebody?
Well, first off, you've got to identify the patterns. You got to, as a content creator, you have to realize that you're not just competing against your direct competition. You're competing against Mr. Beast, LeBron James, Kim Kardashian, Kevin Hart. And understanding, as people are scrolling through their feed, what is going to make them stop? One of the biggest mistakes people make is they contextualize their message in the same way as everybody else.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about mindset. One of the examples I talk about is meditation. We're creating a video about meditation. Meditation's been around for thousands of years. You type it in, there's billions of results. And if you're saying like meditation is the key to stillness, contentness, relieving anxiety or stress, the minute I see that, I automatically, as a viewer, believe I know what this is going to say because I've heard it. Even you may have a different spin on it. You need to contextualize it different. You need to hook people in. One of the tools, and I preface this by saying, don't use this tool all the time, but it is effective, is really flipping it on its head. So we may say meditation is a scam. And then we say, hey, have you ever really felt like meditation is a scam? Like you just sat down there and people tell you to clear your head and all your head does is fill with thoughts? Well, if that's you, I feel your pain. I experienced the exact same thing until I sat down with a Buddhist monk that taught me these 3 key principles. Let's dive into these 3 key principles and how we can apply it.
Wow.
So that's one way of doing it. Like my first book was designed, and we call this hook points of social media. There's billions and billions of results. There's so much competition. So what I decided to do was, again, create this experiment of generating 1 million followers in 30 days as a hook into it. Another prime example is, and we were talking about this a little bit yesterday at lunch, is some people say, well, my industry is not viral. It can never go viral. Well, I can show you plenty of examples of that being false. There's a YouTube account called Clear Tax Value that has over 1 million subscribers. On average, generates 300,000 to 400,000 views a video. And what he did is, here during the pandemic, he started creating videos, simple video of him sitting behind a desk, no edits, simple background. And he just started talking about stimulus checks. When are you going to get your stimulus check? And through that, he broke the mold of what every other accountant talks about. There's another young kid, Graham Stephan, on YouTube that teaches finance to millennials. Now, millennials typically aren't super excited about finance.
Mm.
I'm not saying they don't care, but is it how they're going to spend their time on YouTube at scale? No. So what did he do? Is his most viewed video is how I bought a Tesla for $78, and through those principles, he teaches you finance and understanding and brings you into his ecosystem. So it's really important to make sure that you are showing up in your subject matter, what you want to deliver, that stands out from the crowd. The other big thing, the biggest mistake that people make, and I started in this beginning, is applying traditional marketing tactics that were devised pre-social media. Now, I'm talking specifically organic here. Uh, Most people have been taught that you have a niche audience and you create a specific message and specific content for that niche audience. The problem is the minute you do that and the algorithms try and seed your content beyond your audience, it sees it doesn't resonate because people don't care, and it suppresses that reach. So, what the algorithms are looking for is content that they can seed to the widest possible audience that still grabs that attention and holds that attention. So the trick is, how do we make our content interesting to the people that know nothing about you, maybe don't even care about what you're talking about, but still playing to your overall business objective and goals, because you still want to hit that core target audience. Now, again, it's not easy, but it's pretty simple. Is you got to make people care about your content that normally wouldn't. One prime example is real estate agent Ryan Serhant here in the United States. He sells luxury properties, like $10 million plus properties. Now, his target audience is very small, the people that can afford that. But he understands how social works. So, what does he do? He creates a video of, I'm going to take you on a tour of a $7 million closet. I'm going to take you on a tour of a $250 million ranch. So what is he doing? Like, anybody would want to see that video. They may not care about a real estate agent or real estate broker. That sounds boring, but I want to see what a $7 million closet looks like. And through that, he's entertaining, engaging the widest possible audience. But at the same time, he's playing to his core audience. He's saying, hey, listen, I have access to the best properties. I know this stuff backwards and forwards. You should trust me if you're looking for luxury property. And he's even said that he's sold $30 million plus properties off a single YouTube video.
It's absolutely fascinating. So in the first 3 seconds, we are either going with a pattern interrupt style hook that's counterintuitive. Meditation is a scam. How I bought a Tesla for $78. You're kind of saying something that particularly the Tesla for $78, kind of breaks somebody's pattern and gets their attention. Or you're putting something in front of them that is contextually interesting to them, like a $7 million closet or a $250 million ranch that is going to have popular appeal. But either way, if we're on Instagram, we're stopping the scroll. If we're on YouTube, we're getting them to click.
Yeah, it's always a pattern interrupt, because you're in the pattern of consuming content. And if you can't disrupt that pattern of standing out, you've lost. Now, it may not be a title, it may be a visual. So my creative director did billions of views off of top-down food videos. There are titles, but people aren't seeing that. Like, the pattern interrupt is a plate sliding onto the screen in a certain way, or crushing a red cup, or doing something interesting in those first 3 seconds that's visually appealing or visually eye-grabbing. So it's not just that it has to be a title or a meme card or text. It can be purely a visual as well.
I love that. I think that is so incredibly important for every content creator. I think that's really profound. I want to talk to you about retention, but before we get there, I want to sort of get there by talking about pacing. This is something that you talk about. It's something that Mr. Beast talks about. What is it, and what's the ultimate strategy for pacing?
Well, there's a macro and there's a micro. So let's talk about the macro. So one of the tactics that the top YouTubers use is called the Jenga effect or Jenga theory. So Jenga is a game where you put a bunch of blocks on the table, and with each block you go around the table, each person pulls a block, and you know
Mm.
what's going to happen at the end of the game. The tower falls over.
Mm.
But with each block you pull out, tension builds. Even though you know what the end outcome is, you stick around and play because it builds that tension. So Mr. Beast is an expert at this, but let's break down the $78 Tesla.
Right.
If you watch that video, he doesn't reveal the math of how he did it until 8 or 9 minutes in.
Yes.
Now that doesn't mean that he's filling it with fluff.
Yes.
He's telling story. It's the same thing with Mr. Beast. He'll do giving away an island as a contest. So the end is he giving away an island, and there's these 5 contestants that are going through all these challenges, but he builds that tension to that. Now, it even goes more granular than that. One of my mentors, Ernest Lupinacci, is one of the top branding experts in the world, and he did this analysis of Jaws, the storytelling, and he mapped it out on a graph. And if you look at it on a graph, and this is all movies, it's like this, the entire thing. Because what you
Yeah.
have to do is you have to build, release, build, release, build, release that tension to keep people going across. Because you can't just have a flat monotone thing, and you can't give away the whole thing in the beginning, because then otherwise, why am I sticking around?
Mm. Mm.
So does that make sense?
Absolutely. And so let's talk about, so that speaks to retention through the concept of pacing. What are some other strategies to retain viewers?
Well, one of the things so we have what we call a communication algorithm. It's been around since the 1970s, and Pixar actually uses this in all of their movies and their marketing. They don't really talk about it, but we've kind of turned it into this. We've essentially turned communication into a mathematical formula. So the challenge is most brands and most content creators are likely only reaching 30% of the audience they want to connect with. And the reason is there's 6 different ways that people perceive the world. And based upon how you perceive the world dictates how you communicate with the world and how you want the world to communicate with you. So the 6 different ones is feeling is the largest subset of the population,
Mm-hmm.
which is 30%. So they're perceiving the world based on how it makes them feel.
Mm-hmm.
The second largest is thought and fact based. They're 25%. They want to know the facts, the data, who, what, when, where, why.
Mm.
The third largest is 20% is fun. So they react to the world. They want something that's exciting, stimulating, fun. The 10% is imagination based. So they reflect on the world. So if you ever hear stories of Albert Einstein, he just stared out in the window for hours on end, and that's how he came up with his best ideas. Another 10% is values and opinions. So they are really focused on opinionated content. They want to share their opinion, they want to share their values, they want to know a brand's committed to them. And then the last is 5% is action based. So they perceive the world by acting. They don't think, they don't feel, they just move. So if you ever seen Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, he's running the entire movie. He's just going. He's not worrying about all this stuff. He keeps moving. So one of the biggest things that we do with our clients and training them in this is the challenge from a marketing perspective is, let's just say I perceive the world through thoughts and logic. If I'm only speaking thoughts and logic, I'm tuning out 75%.
Yeah.
So that really mitigates your ability to connect with the widest possible audience. So we really focus on how do we contextualize it for the all 6. Now, typically we focus on the big 3, feelings, facts, and fun, because that represents 75% of the population.
Mm.
If you watch a Pixar movie, and it's good homework for anybody listening to this, watch Inside Out. Don't watch it for the story or any of that. Watch it for the characters and the character development, because they have a character that's designed for each way that people perceive the world.
Mm.
Another amazing one is the Dollar Shave Club launch video, is they do an amazing job of contextualizing feelings, facts, and fun. They even do it in the first 20 seconds. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be over the top with any single one of those, but you need to implement them. So I worked with the largest residential real estate company in the world, and I was training them in this model. And we took, selling a house, for example. And most people in selling a house, what do? They say, hey, this has 5 bedrooms, 1,000 square feet, 4 bathrooms. That's it, and some visual pictures. So if I were to implement this, I may say, this bedroom or this house has 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, 1,000 square feet. But do you see the fireplace? Can you imagine you and your family, how it's gonna feel when you're on Christmas Day opening Christmas presents?
Mm.
And did you see the pool in the backyard? You are gonna throw the craziest and funnest parties, and all of your friends are gonna be super jealous. And I firmly believe that this is the best house for you because of the school district that you're in. So let's make it happen. So I went through all of them. I started with
Yeah.
thoughts and logic. Then I went to imagination and feelings in the same sentences about the fireplace.
Mm.
Then I went into fun
Mm.
about the pool and even through and that your neighbors are going to be jealous because the action-based people want the best. I talked about that I believe that this is the right choice because of the school district and it's layering in um, more fact-based stuff. But taking the same message and just diversifying how you're presenting it.
That's really fascinating. I think the other thing that prevents some people from really leaning into producing content is they might feel, well, I'm not naturally charismatic or I'm not naturally an extrovert. And what I think is interesting, if you look at Mr. Beast, again, to come back to that example, is he's a little bit socially awkward, right? And so what I love about what you're talking about is we're really disseminating it into a science and a formula that anybody can follow. Can you talk to the acceptability of different personality styles, provided we're hitting the right marks that you're talking about?
Yeah, definitely different personality styles work on social. I
Yeah.
mean, you see it all the time. It's what is the format and the storytelling mechanism that you're using to express what you want.
Right.
For example, for me, I'm never going to do Gary Vee's format
Right.
because I'm not going to be that. I can't match his energy and I'm not going to change myself
Yes.
to match that energy.
Yes.
Is Jay Shetty, he has a unique delivery mechanism. Not everybody can pull that off.
Mm.
So there's so many different examples. And again, this goes down to research and references. Like there's successful channels like Vox where there's no they're explainer videos. Like I hired an 18-year-old kid and he started on YouTube when he was 13. And when he started scaling and successful, he never showed himself on camera. He would do voiceover and stuff. There's so many different examples. From a visual standpoint, there's a guy, Brandon Stanton, Humans of New York. He would just go and take portraits of people of New York and then tell the compelling story about who these people were. But he was always behind the camera. So there's so many different ways that you can do it. But if you don't start with the research and you don't understand why things are going viral when choosing the content format, that's when things fall apart.
Let's come back to the frequency conversation we were having before, quality over quantity. You said that you guys do a single production iteration loop. So one video, get the feedback, next video, get the feedback. Under that kind of a cadence, how and I know there's probably no one size fits all answer to this, but generally speaking, how long are you researching, planning the video, shooting the video, getting the feedback, shooting the next video? Like how long generally does that feedback loop go for per video?
It depends on the length of the video. YouTube's a much longer cycle than TikTok or Instagram.
So let's say it's a 5-minute video on YouTube.
Well, typically I wouldn't recommend a 5-minute video on YouTube, but it could take 2 weeks. It could take 2 or 3
video
weeks.
Would you recommend on YouTube?
I mean, so it's changing because YouTube launched Shorts, and they're trying to push Shorts, but it's not fully baked there.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the longevity of that feature is going to be, but typically you're going to want a retention of like 8 to 10 minutes or more. So a lot of people are doing anywhere from like 10 to 20 minutes. But again, you got to do the research and it's always changing. This is the big thing of our process.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what new platform comes, what new feature comes, what algorithm change happens. we're always doing research first.
Yeah.
So we've set a solid foundation for what we're doing.
Yeah.
But to your question is like a YouTube video could take 2 to 4 weeks.
Yep.
I mean, you could do it in a week. I mean, once you do this and get better at it and you got your format dialed in, then it can become quicker. The problem is just jumping to speed, jumping to frequency with really not understanding what works, what doesn't work. You're just churning and burning. Like you're not doing it. Like we were talking about it yesterday. I have a friend who reached about 20 million followers on TikTok, and then he recently was taking that content and posting it every day to YouTube. So he's playing the frequency game, and he hit like 1 million subscribers in like 30 days or something like that. Super quick. And then he started telling people it's frequency. YouTube Shorts is the frequency game. And I told him, I was like, no, your content is dialed in. You spent years dialing in that format.
Yeah.
You know how to tell stories. On top of that, when we look at his data, it was really kind of 2 videos that did the performance that drove that. You know, there's, I think, like one video that had like 50 or 80 million views. Another one was 30 to 50. And that constituted most of that subscriber growth. So frequency can play a role once you have it dialed in. Like another example, the previous company my creative director was working with, they were competing against BuzzFeed. And at the time, BuzzFeed was doing like 250 videos a month. And they were doing like 4 to 8 videos a month, and they were beating BuzzFeed in video performance because they were paying attention to that nuanced detail. So I'm not sitting here saying frequency can't work, but for 99% of people to start with frequency, it's ultimately going to fail, and you're going to burn yourself out. You're not going to learn anything. And maybe you do strike it in the beginning, but then if a change happens, a new platform comes, you don't have that solid foundation to really understand it.
One of the things that's really clear about your message is it all comes back to quality, right? If you're posting frequently and you've got high quality, awesome.
Yeah.
But if you're posting frequently and you've got low quality, well, the platform's learning not to treat your content favorably. The other thing we spoke about yesterday was paid. Paid isn't often something that you recommend. However, it comes back to quality. If you're paying to amplify content that's quality, the algorithm will learn that this is something that people click on and people retain on, and therefore your paid is worthwhile. But if the quality is not there and you're paying to amplify it, all you're doing is teaching the algorithm that this isn't quality content, and you're actually paying to further suppress yourself. And so everything, whether it's frequency, whether it's paid, whether it's these different kind of variabilities. The one thing that's at the bottom of this inverse pyramid, if you like, that everything else stands upon is quality.
Yeah. So let's take another analogy. Let's say you're launching a product and you're advertising that product, but the product is crap.
Right.
And because it's crap, it's not selling.
Right.
Are you going to keep spending money behind it?
Right.
No.
Of course not.
If you have an amazing product and the conversion rates are amazing, the return on ad spend's amazing, you're going to try and spend as much money against it.
Right.
It's the same principle.
Same
The one
principle.
thing is I want to say is quality doesn't necessarily constitute production value. Some people get that mixed up.
Yes.
You don't have to have high production value to constitute quality.
Yes.
Again, it's about grabbing attention and holding attention. And there's many different ways that you can go about it. People, when they're consuming content on social media, oftentimes if they look at like a high production value thing, oftentimes it'll turn them off because it screams commercial or ad or things like that. We go and do that deep research because we have to know what the performance drivers are, both high and low. And even within that, we may look at like a Graham Stephan, or we could even look at a Mr. Beast and look at his most viral videos and also his lowest performing ones, because there's nuances just between that.
Right.
Because all the content creators at the highest level do not hit a home run every single time.
Right.
It doesn't. And you can learn from that.
Right.
But that research will then set the foundation for, okay, this is the hypothesis we have.
Yes.
Now we can start creating ideas based upon those hypotheses.
Yes.
And then we produce based upon that. And then we learn from that and learn where are we falling short? What are we doing well? And iterating off of that process. And sometimes you will hit it out of the park right away. Sometimes it takes longer. And sometimes it takes longer because we're not hitting the performance drivers just right, sometimes it takes longer because we have to earn trust with the algorithms.
Yes.
Like I was talking about yesterday, we had a vitamin supplement company that we created a YouTube channel from scratch, from 0 subscribers. And the first video we ever did was really dialed in. It was really good because we took a format that we used for other companies and generated billions of views. But once we first launched the video, generated maybe 10,000 views, which is not bad for a 0 subscriber channel. But the algorithms saw the potential, but again, wanted to slowly test it because we were unproven. We were a brand new channel.
Yep.
6 months later, jumped to 9 million views and took the channel from 0 subscribers to 50,000. So sometimes there's those other variables that are in play of, again, like I said, the analogies. If we took Jay Shetty's most viewed video, we uploaded it to your account, would it do well? Yeah, I'd probably do 10 times better than any of your other posts, but is it going to do 300 million views the same way?
No.
Probably not.
You know, I'm viewing this as a multi-year journey, you know.
And you have to.
You have to.
Because if you're viewing it as a short-term thing, you're not in it for the right reasons.
100%. And you're not going to be in it for enough time to learn the lessons or to get good. I think this is the other really cool thing that people need to understand is, like, whether you're playing the violin or playing the piano or building companies or producing videos for YouTube, it's research, it's depth of knowledge, and it's taking time to develop that capability. I'm going to put you on the spot. We spoke about the initial 3 seconds, as we spoke about before we started shooting. I'll film the introduction for this video on this podcast once we wrap up. What do you think a good initial 3 seconds on this video / podcast should be?
I mean, there's so many different ones. I mean, the one that everybody uses is my 1 million followers thing. You know, how I built 1 million followers in 30 days.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah.
You know, we're kind of playing around with taglines for a new, you know, community product that we're launching of going viral isn't luck, it's engineered. You know, I think that there's a lot of things about virality that people are really attracted to. But typically, honestly, when I develop hook points, I put it on a Google Doc. I'm actually building a technology platform, and again, I use references to guide that process. But I think something around, you know, virality. You know, our team has generated 60 billion views and 100 million followers. You know, what you can learn from the team that built 100 million followers plus 60 billion views for the projects we've worked on. How to make, you know, the most unsexy product or service go viral. Things like that.
Alrighty.
Now that you seed it in my head, I'll probably come up with more by the end.
We'll have a Google Doc by the end of the day.
Yeah.
The most unsexy products go viral. Okay. If you're watching this video or listening to this podcast, part of the reason you're probably still here is you watched or heard the intro that Brendan's just given me that we would have fed you at the beginning of the episode.
Another one we're playing with is 99% of brands are failing in social media. You're not alone.
Yes. That's the path that my mind was going down, because I do think so many people are struggling with social media and struggling to get virality and struggling to be heard.
Yeah, and let's talk about virality, because especially with like small businesses, they'll ask, or general businesses, they ask, well, why do I want to go viral? Because viral is a broad term. So one of the examples I give is, like, let's just say your baseline today is 1,000 views a video. And out of those 1,000 views, 50% is your core target. It's high. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have 100,000 views with 20% being your core target?
Exactly.
I mean, you just jumped from reaching 20,000 core target audience members.
Yeah.
Or you jumped from 500 to 20,000.
20,000, yeah.
So even that, like, virality doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be generating tens or hundreds of millions of views. For some people, going from 1,000 to 100,000 or even 1,000 to 10,000 is massive growth.
I love that. That's really powerful. We've spoken about research a lot in this episode. So once this episode wraps up, and someone's watching this, they're listening to this, they're thinking, okay, I need to do some research. Simply just going out and watching 50 videos without lenses to look through can be a bit daunting and overwhelming. What are some guidelines that you give people when doing some research? Is it look at what's happening in the first 3 seconds, look at the pacing. Look at how they're contextualizing their message. Think about what their hook point is. Like, what are the lenses that one should be looking through when looking at other content creators for research?
Yeah, all the ones that you listed are good.
Yeah.
The challenge is, are they the performance drivers? And you just don't know until you dive in. I mean, we're launching a product. I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but we're launching.
Couple of weeks.
Yeah, it'll probably be launched. We're launching a product called Viral Trends, where because this is challenging, it takes time. Like, it takes time for us to really teach people how to do the right research and pay attention to the details. In addition, some people just don't want to do the research.
Yeah.
So what we decided to do is literally every day we're doing this.
Yeah.
We do it because we have to do it, but we love doing it. We are always doing research. We're passing content back and forth, talking about why this is going. We're always discovering new content formats, content creators, things like that. So essentially what we're going to do is our internal team is going to do the research. We're going to do a recorded Zoom breaking down that research, explaining the performance drivers. And then we're going to give you the access to the actual research sheet and then an action guide to take off of it so that you can get kind of used to that flow of doing it. But the things that you mentioned, the first 3 seconds, the hook, pacing and in tonality, like even the tone of voice, the speed at which they talk. Because if you put Gary Vee next to Jay Shetty versus Mr. Beast, completely different ranges of their tonality.
Yeah.
The challenge is paying attention to the nuanced details of those things to extract that. So, like, I'll give you an example. We were working with an amazing coach out of Spain, and we gave her this reference, Dr. Julie Smith, who's a clinical psychologist that kills it on Instagram or kills it on TikTok. She's doing pretty well on Instagram as well. And we said, here's your reference, okay? Here's some key considerations. Go create a piece of content, come back to us so that we can line them up side by side. And you could clearly see that she did listen to us. She did follow the instructions, but she was missing the key nuances. Like, for example, if you look at Dr. Julie Smith, her frame is really well done. The lighting is really well done. When she speaks, she leans in to create that sense of intimacy. This woman, there was a table like this between her and the screen. The lighting wasn't really there. The background wasn't really there. And the minute that we pointed out those nuanced details, she's like, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense."
Yeah.
But if we weren't there to kind of really break that down,
Yeah.
that's where the challenging part comes in. Like I had mentioned to you yesterday is Mr. Beast was on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan asked Mr. Beast, "How did you get good at going viral?" And he's like, "Did you study, did you watch video tutorials on YouTube?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, it's like, I found 4 other crazy lunatics who were all their high school dropouts, and we spent 1,000 days straight in this daily mastermind, and we broke down virality for up to 10 hours a day." They would put up like 1,000 thumbnails next to each other and measure like the color shading difference between them. They would measure the number of edits in the most viral videos. All of those things that really, those nuanced details that go viral. The challenge is, those people aren't readily available. So that's why I'm more than willing to give all of this information for free right now. It's just getting into nuanced details is like, it's difficult without actually walking people through it and showing people it. Because it's one thing to talk about it. It's a completely different thing to actually do it.
One further question on that is, when doing the research, so you spoke about tonality and speed of voice from Gary, Jay, Mr. Beast. If you're looking at 3 people that have done incredibly well and they all have different tonality and pacing, what's the output of that from a research perspective? Because I would imagine most people go, okay, well, one talks really fast, one talks really slow, and one's a full production that's light and shade. Therefore, any pacing can work. Therefore, whatever pacing I come with is fine. Like, what are the hypotheses that you draw from looking at a Gary, a Jay, and a Mr. Beast as it pertains to pacing in this instance?
So first off, I don't want to say pacing and tonality, bring it as it is, and it can work no matter what. It can't. Like if you're monotone all the way through, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Like if you look at a, and there's, and just because like for myself, I'm never going to do Gary because I don't have his personality. That doesn't mean we can't glean insights from what Gary does.
Right.
So, for example, if you watch Gary's videos, they do an amazing job, especially with his podcast interviews, of taking 3 seconds out of maybe the end of the clip and putting it in the beginning, or the middle and putting it in the beginning, to really grab that attention. In addition to his tonality is he's hyper energetic, but he does slow down and then he picks it back up. Again, what we were talking about, the Jaws structure.
Yeah.
He ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Jay is more kind of that calm storyteller. He brings you in as like, I'm going to tell you a bedtime story.
Mm.
He has that emotional, intellectual, loving embrace. Going back to the personality types, he's playing to all of them at the same time. Mr. Beast is just having a ton of fun. He's having a ton of fun. You're going on a journey, and it's going to be a fun ride. And he's going to take you along on this ride and entertain you. In addition, what Mr. Beast that does amazing is not just the fun part, but the emotional part. Like he'll go, like one of his earlier videos, he would go to a restaurant and tip them a gold bar, like a fast food restaurant. He would buy the entire car dealership and give away the cars for free.
Yeah.
So it plays to that emotional side of it as well. So it's diversifying that audience. So even within each of those, you can take something away and learn from it. But again, it just goes into understanding who we're working with, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what are the messages they want to convey. Then how can we learn from these other creators, these other content creators, their performance drivers, and take those hypotheses. It's just a general sense, not like a storytelling sense or a content sense, and then cater it towards the individual.
Yes. How did you build an audience of 1 million followers in 30 days?
So I had spent about 3.5 years testing content for clients. I was working with professional athletes, brands, journalists, with all different kinds of objectives. Some of them had lead acquisition, some of them were traffic, some of them were awareness, some of it was engagement. And there was a subset that were like action sports athletes that was follower growth because their earning potential is heavily predicated on that. So the first time I did it was on Facebook. And basically, all the things that we have talked about today, I kind of condensed it into a system of using the Facebook advertising platform as a market research tool, where essentially I could seed hundreds of variations of a single piece of content. So doing my research, understanding the content format, the content structure, the message, and then contextualizing that in hundreds of variations. And what I would do is, because I was starting from zero, is I would seed out to cold audiences, and I would measure two things. I'd measure one, what is the effectiveness of them to click the follow button? And more importantly, what was the effectiveness of them getting to share that piece of content so that you can add on to that viral coefficient? So I tested all of those things. I probably tested 5,000 variations in 30 days to generate that 1 million followers. Then when I had to do it for Instagram, I had to take a different approach because Facebook's built around the share button.
Yeah.
Like you can push content out, people share it, and it exponentially grows out.
Yeah.
Instagram's not that. Like,
Yeah.
can you share a piece of content with an individual group of people? Yes, but it's not like you're sharing it. You click the share button and it goes to your profile and everybody sees it and
Yeah.
it drives traffic back. So with Instagram, and you said you're doing this methodology too, is we just identified accounts that had anywhere between 1 million and 20 million followers, And then again, we applied our core principles. We would do the research, we would construct content that grabbed attention and held attention long enough for the person to say, I need to follow this account. So we typically would take a single piece of content, test it with one account that had like a few million followers. We would measure the response rate of it. Like what was the effectiveness of people seeing that piece of content, saying, I need to go follow this account and clicking the follow button. And once we had a winner, then we would distribute out to a network of like 20 or 30 million followers. And that's where I forget the numbers, but I think we were doing like at max like 100,000 followers in like 2 days.
Wow.
Doing that. And because it comes down to content. We had a partner that had 20 million followers on Instagram. You could post a piece of content that wasn't effective, and maybe it generates 500 followers. You post a piece of content that's really designed well and effective, it could generate 30,000 followers off a single post.
Yeah.
And it's also it's a blessing and a curse. I chose how I generated 1 million followers in 30 days for a reason. It's a hook. But so many people are just so focused on follower growth, which in my books and courses and stuff, I'll teach you how to do it. I have no problem. But because of what we talked about in the beginning about the algorithms, those followers are meaningless unless you're a good content creator.
Yeah.
So that's why oftentimes we will not work with people at this juncture that are just about, I want you to generate followers for me.
Right.
Or create this strategy. Because ultimately they're going to come back to me all pissed off that they generated a bunch of followers and then they're getting minimal engagement reach. They're going to say, you generated fake followers.
Right.
Or non-targeted followers. Or no, your content's not dialed in. You didn't spend the time, energy, and resources. So that's why we focus so heavily on the viral content engineering process, because if you get that dialed in, you're going to have more followers than you know what to deal with, and you're going to be set up for long-term success no matter where social media goes.
That's really powerful. Brendan, I want everybody to read your last 2 books. The first one you've spoken about is 1 million followers. That's incredible sort of hypothesis on how to scale audience. And the most recent one is Hook Point, which is how to, get people's attention in a 3-second world. I think both are really profound and both speak to a lot of the methodologies we've spoken about today. Aside from the books, where can people follow you and your journey?
Yeah, I would recommend that they can go to my website, brendanjkane.com. It's BRENDAN, J's and Jack, KANE.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Go to my blog. There's so much free content on there. And yeah, get on the newsletter because we have a lot of new exciting things coming up. And then they can buy both of my books from my website. Or if they want to kind of dive in and learn more about our methodology, you can go to hookpoint.com. There's a free video and a free deck that breaks down our methodology. They can use as a resource guide, and they can schedule a call with our team too if they want to connect.
Amazing. Mr. Brendan Kane, thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to connect with you and everybody that tuned in for this.
Absolutely. Thanks, mate. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you do 3 quick things to ensure you continue on this journey of growing into the very best version of yourself. Number 1, hit the subscribe button and make sure you've got notifications turned on. Number 2, check out more videos up here that you can watch right now. And number 3, stay connected. Follow me over on Instagram at Jack Delosa or head to the-entourage.com in order to join a movement of 550,000 7- and 8-figure business owners. I look forward to seeing you there.